"We don't need you anymore, Mom." That's what she said. My daughter. Not in anger. Not even sadness. Just cold. Like I was an old receipt in her purse. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I just looked at the folder on her kitchen table, the one with my name on it. I saw the date she signed it. Before my last birthday. I smiled. Quietly. Walked out the front door. Left it open behind me. That's fine. The judge can talk now. The house was always quiet. But not the lonely kind. The gentle kind. Wine through the trees. Radio on low. Tea kettle whistling, then silence. I made morning coffee the same way every day. 2 scoops, no sugar. I'd always pour a second cup, just in case someone stopped by. No one ever did. The guest bedroom still had the quilt she loved as a child. Pink and lavender. Faded from the sun. I'd wash it every spring. Even though she hadn't stayed the night in 5 years. My daughter used to come by after work. We'd sit at the table, her with a glass of wine, me with tea. Talk about her boss, her clients, her weekend plans. She never asked about mine. And I never offered. Once, I bought us tickets to a pottery class. She rescheduled. Then forgot. I went alone. Came home with 2 mugs. I still use both. She used to say I was her best friend. She'd sit on the counter while I made spaghetti. Tell me about her dreams. Her fears. The boys who made her cry. I'd kiss her temple and whisper, "One day they'll see." She stopped calling as often once she got married. Then came the kids. Then came silence. I tried to give space. I thought that was love. Space to grow. To be a mother. To forget how much I gave. I'd send cards for every occasion. I kept a drawer full of spares. Birthday, congratulations, thinking of you. One time, I mailed a letter with nothing but a drawing of a heart inside. She never mentioned it. There's a photo in the hallway. Her 6th grade play. She was a sunflower. She hated the costume but loved the applause. I was in the front row, clapping the loudest. Sometimes I'd scroll through her social media. A digital wall I wasn't invited to. Parties. Trips. Birthdays. I was in none of them. I kept telling myself she was busy. That was easier than saying I was forgotten. Once, I baked her favorite cookies. Drove 40 minutes to surprise her. She opened the door in a rush, hands full, face distracted. Said, "Now's not a good time, Mom." Took the cookies. Closed the door. I sat in my car for 15 minutes before driving off. Every year I updated the will. Made sure the trust had her name, the kids' names. Made it simple, seamless. I even left a note inside. "This is for love, not repayment." There were nights I'd sit by the fireplace with a book in my lap, unread. Just holding it. Listening to the clock tick. There was peace in the house. Not joy. Not noise. Just stillness. She stopped calling me Mama years ago. Now it was Mom, clipped and grown. Businesslike. Polite. Cold. She once asked if I'd ever thought of moving into a retirement village. "Just so you're not alone," she said. I said I was fine. She never brought it up again. I started keeping a journal. Not of feelings. Just facts. Dates. Times. Things I gave. Things she took. The slow erasure. But I never wrote her name down. Not once. I was never truly lonely. Just quietly replaced. It was a Thursday. Gray sky. The kind of cold that seeps into your elbows. I hadn't heard from her in over a month. No birthday call. No text. Not even a forwarded meme. So I baked the lemon bread she used to love. Wrapped it in parchment. Tied it with twine. Wrote a little note. "Just in case you forgot how loved you are." I didn't call. Didn't warn. Just drove. Her house used to feel like mine. Same scent, vanilla and dryer sheets. Same wind chimes. But the door was locked now. Curtains drawn. Even the dog didn't bark. I walked around the side, through the garden gate I built with my own hands 10 summers ago. That's when I heard her voice. I mean, we don't need her anymore. Laughter. Then. She's barely here. It's not like she's involved. We've got everything in motion already. I froze. The lemon bread felt suddenly heavy. I loosened my grip before the twine cut into my fingers. Another voice, her husband's, I think. "Once the papers go through, that's it. She won't even notice. Silence. Then my daughter again. She'll be gone soon anyway. I didn't move. Didn't cry. Just stood there, with my own heartbeat drowning out the wind. I turned to leave. That's when I saw it. Through the side window. On the shelf, next to the television. A framed photo. From my living room. The one of the whole family at Christmas. But something was off. Another frame, newer, shinier, had been leaned in front of it, blocking me out. You could see my arm. My shoulder. But not my face. They hadn't taken the photo down. They just covered me. I stepped backward. My heel landed in a flower bed I once planted with her children. Dirt on my heel. Crushed marigolds. I walked back to my car, still holding the bread. Placed it in the passenger seat. Buckled it in. Drove in silence. Not even the radio. Just the soft thrum of tires on cold pavement. At home, I placed the bread on the counter. Didn't touch it again. That night, I sat in the armchair by the window. The one with the fading cushion. The one she used to curl up in with a blanket and a book. I lit one candle. Turned off every other light. Pulled out the folder from the side drawer. The one with the will. The trust. The love letter in legal form. I opened it. Checked the names. Saw hers first and bolded. The pen beside me was still uncapped from the last update. But I didn't touch it. Not yet. Instead, I folded the papers. Neatly. Precisely. Slid them back inside. Then I picked up the photo from the mantel. The same one I saw in her house. Only here. I was still visible. I stared at it. Longer than I should have. My hand moved slowly. Lifted the frame. Turned it around. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat with it. And for the first time in years, everything inside me was screaming. The room was silent. But everything inside me was screaming. And I let it. Quietly. The first time she forgot my birthday, I told myself it was just the kids. Busy hands. Tired eyes. I lit a candle on a slice of cake I bought myself. Made a wish anyway. The second time, she texted 3 days late. Hope it was nice, Mom. No call. No card. I told myself she was overwhelmed. I knew what that was like. I once raised her through colic, layoffs, and a leaking roof. There was the dinner I invited her to. 3 weeks in advance. Made roast chicken her favorite stuffing. Even bought the wine she liked, the expensive one. She canceled the morning of. Said her coworker had a promotion party. I saved her plate. Covered it in foil. Ate mine cold. I told myself she was building her life. That I'd raised her to be independent. That it was working. One Christmas she gave me a spa gift card. The receipt was still inside. It had been purchased 2 hours earlier. Right next to her nail salon. I smiled. Said thank you. Told her I'd use it soon. I never did. I kept it in my drawer until it expired. I stopped bringing up old memories. She didn't remember them the way I did. Didn't laugh the same. Didn't cry. She used to cry with me. Over movies. Over bad days. Over nothing. Now when I teared up once telling her I missed her laugh, she looked at her phone and said, "Don't start, Mom. Please." I told myself I was being sensitive. That I should be grateful she still answered. There was a gift I gave her. A bracelet with both our birthstones. Found it months later in her bathroom drawer. Tangled. Dusty. Never worn. I told myself maybe it didn't match her style. Her youngest once asked me why I lived alone. Before I could answer, my daughter cut in. She likes it that way. Don't you, Mom? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I nodded. Didn't speak. I used to send her handwritten letters. Little notes tucked in her kids' lunchboxes. Found one in the trash when I visited. Unopened. With a grease stain on the envelope. I told myself it was an accident. When her husband got promoted, I baked a cake. Chocolate espresso, his favorite. Drove it to their house. He didn't even come to the door. She took it with one hand, phone in the other. Said thanks. We're actually trying to cut sugar. That night, I saw a party on her social media. My cake on the table. Half eaten. I told myself I was being dramatic. That she meant well. But something inside me had started to pull away. Not out of anger. Out of exhaustion. There was a moment, small, ordinary. I had brought over soup because she said she was sick. She opened the door, took it, said thanks, and turned to go back inside. The door closed behind her. No invite. No eye contact. I stood on the porch for a full minute, listening to my heartbeat. My hands still warm from holding the container. That's when I started keeping track. Not out of vengeance. Just clarity. I started noticing the pattern I had trained myself to ignore. Missed calls. Changed subjects. Polite smiles. No more I love yous at the end of phone calls. I stopped buying cards. Stopped baking without being asked. Stopped reaching out first. The silences weren't accidental. They were built. Brick by brick. I went back through old texts. Years of me asking, reminding, reaching. Her responses shorter, flatter, colder. I'll let you know. Can't talk now. Maybe another time. I found a message I sent 2 years ago. I miss you. Just wondering if you're okay. No reply. I never sent another one like it. I started to realize I wasn't part of her present. I was a guest from her past. One she hadn't asked to return. She used to cry on my shoulder. Now she sighed when I called. She used to call me Mama. Now I was just Mom. And still I tried. Still I showed up. Still I forgave. But now, I saw the picture frame. The one in her house. The one where she hid me behind someone else. It wasn't just a forgotten birthday. Or a missed dinner. It was deliberate. It was designed. The little hurts had lined up like soldiers. Quiet. Disciplined. Unseen by everyone but me. And they were no longer easy to excuse. It happened on a Tuesday. Laundry day. The sky was soft and pale, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to cry. I was putting away sweaters. Stacking the ones she used to borrow. She always left her perfume on the sleeves. I found the box by accident, tucked behind the old suitcase in the hall closet. It was the keepsake box I gave her on her wedding day. White linen cover. Ribbon tie. Inside, I had placed a letter, the lace from my own veil, and a photo of her as a child, asleep on my chest. The box was returned. Unopened. Lid slightly bent. Dust covered. I held it in both hands, like it might shatter. But it didn't. Only I did. I sat on the floor. Just sat. Like the world had slowed down to the sound of my breathing. I opened the letter. My own handwriting, once full of hope. Love is something we give, not because we must, but because it's what makes us more than just alive. I couldn't finish it. My eyes blurred. Not from tears, but from remembering the woman I was when I wrote it. She was still trying. Still believing. I placed the box on the bed. Didn't touch it again that day. Instead, I went into the attic. Pulled out an old home video. Her second birthday. She was wearing butterfly wings. Running in circles. Yelling, "Watch me, Mama. Watch me." I did. I watched her again. From my armchair alone 34 years later. Same wings. Same laugh. Only now she flew away and never looked back. I paused the video at the moment she threw frosting in my hair. We were both laughing. It was real. It had once been real. I turned off the TV. Sat in silence. The next morning, I made a list. Not a grocery list. Not chores. A different list. What I had given. What she had returned. What was taken without thanks. What was left behind. At the top I wrote, "This is not revenge. This is remembering." I went to the garage, opened the cedar chest. Pulled out the quilt I sewed for her when she moved into her dorm. Still folded, still fresh. Never used. I touched every square. Every memory stitched inside. My finger landed on the blue one, the corner patch. An old sundress she wore at age 9. The day she said, "I'll take care of you one day, Mama. I promise." I whispered back, "I remember." Have you ever remembered something small? Just when everything felt like it was falling apart. The memory hit harder than the silence ever could. I put the quilt back. Closed the chest. Then I walked to the closet. Found the wedding necklace. Silver chain, soft pearl, tiny sapphire. She wore it down the aisle. Said it made her feel like I carried you with me. Now, it lay tangled in a junk drawer. Next to old batteries and spare buttons. I picked it up gently, held it in my palm, waited for the tears. They never came. Just a soft ache in my throat, like something was folding itself inside me. I took it back, quietly, just like she took everything from me. No fight, no questions, just subtraction. That evening I made tea, poured it into the older mug, the one I made for her in pottery class. The glaze had cracked, but it still held warmth. I took it out to the porch, watched the sun disappear behind the trees, birds going home to nests. Even they knew where they belonged. I sat in the rocking chair, quilt over my lap, necklace in my hand. And for the first time in months, I felt still. Not okay. Not healed. Just still. And in that stillness, I knew something had shifted. Not in her. In me. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for her to remember. Not for her to come back. Not even for an apology. Just breathing. Just being. The breaking point didn't come like thunder. It came like a sigh. Low. Unseen. But final. Empty. Forgotten. Perfect. The next morning, I dressed slowly, buttoned the blouse she once said made me look like a principal. I didn't care. It made me feel sharp. I slid the necklace into my pocket. Not to wear, just to carry. I drove to the bank. No one greeted me. No one needed to. The trust account manager looked surprised. "Are you sure?" he asked. I nodded. Signed the forms. Removed her name. Added a charities. The ink dried fast. So did my hope. Next was the lawyer. Same man who helped me draft the will 10 years ago. He remembered the cookies I'd brought then. I brought none now. "I'd like to revise," I said. He flipped open the file. Saw her name, bold, underlined, permanent. Until it wasn't. I crossed it out with one stroke. No trembling. Just ink. He asked if I wanted to leave a letter of explanation. "No," I said. "She won't read it anyway." He said nothing. Just looked at me a moment too long. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and left the office like I was walking away from fire. At home I cleaned. Not to pass the time. To reclaim it. I boxed up the photos where I had to squint to find myself. All the group shots. All the posed smiles. I kept the candid ones. The ones where we were laughing before the flash. Those felt real. Before she learned to perform affection. In the kitchen drawer, I found the emergency contact card. Her number. Top of the list. I crossed it out. Wrote down my neighbors instead. Silent action. No phone calls. No confrontation. Just correction. Then came the mailbox. The nameplate she gifted me after my birthday one year. Margaret Lewis, beloved mother and grandmother. I unscrewed it. Felt the metal cool against my palm. Walked it to the shed. Dropped it in a drawer and shut it. Took out the old brass plate I hadn't touched in years. It read simply, "Margaret." I screwed it back in place. It was enough. I was enough. Later that evening, I opened the voicemail app. There were 2 saved messages from her, old ones. One from last year. One from before that. The first. "Hey Mom. Just calling because I thought of you when I saw someone wearing your scarf color. Hope you're good." The second. "Hi Mom. Love you. Can't talk long. Just wanted to hear your voice." I pressed delete. Not from anger. From mercy. She didn't sound like that anymore. I didn't need the ghost. Then the silent scene. The final one. I walked to the fire pit out back. Lit a single match. Tossed in the spare copy of the will. The one she never knew I had. Watched it curl, blacken, turn to air. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it. Finally. Inside, the house smelled like something new. Like paper cleared. Like a name remembered. I poured myself a glass of water. Sat on the porch with my mug, hers, in hand. There was no music. No television. No need. The chair creaked beneath me. The sky went dark gently. I thought of the photo she covered. How carefully she leaned another frame against it. Not to remove me. Just to erase me. But I was still there. Arm, shoulder. Edge of a smile. And I would always know. That I hadn't left. I'd been left out. Have you ever stayed quiet just to keep the peace? And then one day realized, you were the only one keeping it? That was me. Until now. The power didn't come from yelling. It came from removing her name without saying a word. From burning a will with clean hands. From changing the locks with no note on the door. She wouldn't notice right away. That was the beauty of it. But one day, she'd call. She'd assume. She'd find out. And I'd be far beyond needing to explain. Because quiet power doesn't ask to be seen. It simply walks away. I thought I had already seen the worst of it. That cold afternoon behind the garden gate. That sentence. We don't need her anymore. But pain has layers. And some betrayals come dressed as paperwork. The lawyer called 2 weeks after I revised the will. Margaret, he said, careful with his tone. I think there's something you need to see. I went in the next morning. Brought no purse. No questions. Just hands that had stopped shaking weeks ago. He slid a file across the desk. A thick one. Cream-colored, like old bone. Your daughter submitted this to our office last fall. I opened it. Inside. A petition for power of attorney. Medical proxies. A signed statement about my declining faculties. Her signature. Firm rehearsed. Dated 3 weeks before Christmas. Right after she skipped my birthday dinner. Right before she posted matching pajama photos with her kids. She claimed you were showing signs of confusion, the lawyer said. Said she wanted to be proactive. I stared at the signature. My initials in shaky ink, scrawled at the bottom of the form. I didn't sign this, I said. And I didn't need to explain. He already knew. The edges of the page were too crisp. The pen stroke, not mine. It was a forgery. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not pain. Not rage. Just weight falling off. She hadn't just walked away. She had tried to take everything. While I was still alive. She withdrew the petition before it went to court, he added. No follow-up. Maybe she changed her mind. No. She hadn't changed her mind. She just didn't need it anymore. She thought she already had me wrapped up. Handled. Filed. She submitted her version of your will too, he said, softer now. I turned the page. Her copy. Typed. Clean. Asset list reduced, redistributed. My house listed under her name. The lake cabin under her husband's. The bank accounts pre-divided for the grandkids. No mention of me. No mention of my wishes. Just business. It was dated the same day I dropped off lemon bread. She was planning the end of me before I even knew I was supposed to be gone. I didn't speak. Just gathered the pages. Folded them. My eyes landed on the crumpled envelope in the side of the file. Something familiar. I reached for it. Opened it slowly. Inside, the letter I wrote for her wedding day. The one I placed in that keepsake box with the lace and photo. I had signed it with hope. All I want is to know that love carries on. She never opened it. The fold was still sharp. The paper untouched. It had been thrown away. Right here. In this office. Discarded like a receipt she no longer needed. I held it in my lap. Thumb brushing over the edge. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I just said. She didn't just forget me. She erased me. The lawyer asked if I wanted to press charges for the forgery. I shook my head. No. Let her live with what she almost did. And I left. The sun was bright outside. Uncomfortably cheerful. It felt wrong. I drove home with the envelope beside me. Didn't put it in the drawer. Didn't burn it either. I set it on the mantel. Unopened. Let it stay visible. Not for her. For me. I needed to see what I once offered. And what she chose to throw away. At night, I pulled out the copy of her fake will. Sat with it. Studied the numbers. The words. The intention. She'd already divided my body before I had stopped breathing. That hurt in a way I didn't know how to name. It was surgical. Clean. Precise. I thought back to when she was 8. She cried because she lost a marble. Cried so hard I let her sleep in my bed. She clutched my hand all night. That same hand had tried to erase me. No, not erase. Replace. With paperwork. I walked to the closet. Pulled out the frame. She once hid behind another in her living room. The one where my smile was covered. I took out the photo. Cut it. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. Her piece went into the drawer. Mine I framed alone. Not to forget. but to finally see myself again. A woman who gave everything and took nothing in return. Until now. That night, I slept without dreams, without noise, without her name stuck in my throat. Because now I knew the truth. This wasn't absence. This was betrayal. Beautifully disguised. Legally packaged. Morally hollow. She thought I wouldn't find out. Thought I'd just go on giving. But she forgot one thing. Mothers remember everything. The next morning, I opened the windows. All of them. Let the air pass through like a cleansing. Dust lifted. Curtains danced. Something inside me shifted with the breeze. I didn't reach for my phone. Didn't check if she had called. She hadn't. And I no longer cared. Instead, I made tea. Used the older mug again. The one I made in that pottery class. The one with the small crack down the side. Still whole. Still mine. Then I did something I hadn't done in over 20 years. I painted. Set up the easel on the back porch. Pulled out old brushes with stiff bristles and half-dried tubes of color. Canvas blank. So was I. But I started anyway. The first stroke was shaky. Second, better. By the 10th, I remembered. Not technique, but joy. I painted wildflowers. Loosely, freely. No plan. No purpose. Just because I wanted to. By noon, my hands were stained in pinks and greens. And I was smiling without noticing. That afternoon, I called the local community center. The one I used to donate to every December. Asked if they still ran their women's retreat program. They said funding had been cut years ago. I said, not anymore. The money that was once meant for her. Every cent, every policy, every deed. Was going somewhere new. Somewhere it would multiply in kindness. In rest. In reclamation. The retreat would carry my name. Not out of vanity, but memory. So that when women asked, who started this? Someone would say, a woman who gave all her love away, and then gave it to herself. I went through the house that week. Gathered the pieces I once saved for her. The crystal glasses. The embroidered pillowcases. The heirloom candlesticks from my grandmother. All wrapped. All donated. It was strange at first. Giving things without grief. But each item released felt like air returning to my lungs. Then I came to the necklace. The one she left in the drawer. The one I carried in my pocket the day I changed everything. I held it again. For the last time. Then I walked to the lake by the old park. The same one I used to take her to when she was small. I stood at the edge. Wind on my face. Watched the water ripple. Always moving. Never asking permission. I opened my hand. Let the necklace drop. It sank without sound. Gone. But I remained. That evening I pulled out the quilt. The one she never took to college. I folded it. Placed it inside a box. And I wrote a name on top. Not hers. A woman from the shelter. The one who always smiled when I brought food. She'd said once, I've never had anything handmade before. Now she would. I chose peace. Not the kind that waits for approval. The kind that plants itself and grows anyway. That night I watered my garden. Deadhead the roses. Pulled up the weeds without anger. Without rush. The photo frame, the one I cut, now held just my image. Me in soft light. Looking off to the side, half smiling. I placed it on the shelf. Center. Not hidden. The unopened letter from her wedding day still sat on the mantel. Not out of bitterness. But witness. It reminded me what I was willing to give. What she chose not to receive. I didn't need her to want it anymore. I just needed to stop offering. Would you have walked away? Or taken everything back? I walked. Not out of defeat. But direction. And every step led back to myself. It was late summer when she came back. Warm air. Yellow leaves just starting to let go. I was trimming the lavender near the porch. Hands in the soil. Breathing deep. Her car pulled up too fast, tires crunching the gravel like she had a right to urgency. I didn't flinch. Didn't stand. Just snipped one more stem. Mom. Her voice too loud, too desperate. Like saying my name louder would rewind the clock. I stood slowly. Brushed dirt off my knees. Met her eyes. She looked thinner. Less sure. Holding a file folder in one hand and sunglasses in the other like shields. I heard about the trust, she said. Didn't say hello. Didn't say sorry. I said nothing. Just nodded once. You gave it all away? She asked it like a question, but it sounded more like an accusation. I stepped aside, motioned toward the porch. She didn't sit. Neither did I. She opened the folder. Legal printouts. Deadlines on white paper. My name. No longer hers. I didn't mean to hurt you. She said it flat. Practiced. But her eyes blinked too often. You did, I said. Not to punish her. Just to confirm the record. She swallowed hard. Mom, I was scared. You weren't calling much. We thought maybe. I cut in. Soft. Sharp. She looked away. Birds chirped in the trees behind us like background noise from another life. Was the forgery your husband's idea, or yours? She didn't answer. Didn't have to. Her silence was cleaner than a confession. I walked to the edge of the porch. Pointed to the garden beds. Those tulips came back this year. I thought they'd died out. She stared at me confused. Like she was waiting for warmth. Waiting for a mother. But the warmth had moved. Replanted itself. Far from her hands. I know I made mistakes, she tried again. You were always hard to read. I nodded. I was quiet. Not absent. She stepped closer. Tried to place her hand on mine. I moved it gently away. There was no scene. No tears. Just gravity. Where do we go from here? She asked. I looked at her then. Really looked. Saw the lines around her mouth. The shadow of who she once was. You go wherever you need to, I said. I'm already where I belong. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out that hadn't already been said too late. Her eyes flicked to the photo on the porch table. Just me. Smiling in the garden. She studied it like a stranger. You're really not changing it back? Her voice cracked. Finally. I shook my head. The retreat opens in September. I'll be teaching painting again. She blinked. Tried to form a smile. Failed. Can I visit? She asked. But not like a daughter. Like someone asking for access. I didn't answer. Just picked up the clippers. I didn't do everything right, I said. But I didn't deserve to be replaced while I was still breathing. She stood there a moment longer. No apology. No plea. Just the silence of someone realizing they'd run out of time. I turned my back to her. Clipped another lavender stem. Felt the sun warm on my shoulder. She walked to her car. Opened the door. Hesitated. Then she turned and said, I did love you, you know. I didn't turn. Just said, I know. That's what makes it worse. She left. Gravel crunching again. No wave. No glance back. That night, she left a voicemail. The first in months. I'm sorry. Please call me. Pause. I didn't know what I was doing. Pause. I miss you. I listened. Once. Then pressed delete. No rage. No grief. Just release. For a moment, I pitied her. Then I remembered who I was. I wasn't the voice crying out for love anymore. I was the silence that followed. The strength that stayed behind. The garden that bloomed anyway. She came back. But not for me. For what I had. For what she thought I'd still give. But I'd already given it to someone who would never ask me to disappear. The retreat opened in early September. Sunlight poured through tall windows. Fresh paint on the walls. Wildflowers on every table. Women came in quiet. Some carried bruises. Others carried silence. But all of them walked through that door like they were remembering how to stand tall again. I sat with them the first morning. Showed them how to hold a brush. How to mix color without fear. I didn't talk much. They didn't need my story. Only my presence. Only proof that a soft life could grow again. They called me Miss Margaret. With gentleness. Not pity. In the garden out back, I planted a new row of tulips. Beneath each one, I buried a slip of paper. Words I'd once whispered to her in love. They didn't belong to her anymore. They belonged to the earth now. To something that would bloom without her permission. I kept the photo of myself in the art studio. Framed in pine. Propped by the window. Not to be admired. Just to remind me. I had returned to myself. Every evening, I sat on the bench near the lake. Same place I dropped the necklace. Still water. Still peace. One of the younger women sat beside me once. Asked what made me want to start a place like this. I told her. Sometimes the things we build for others, we end up needing for ourselves. She nodded, then rested her hand over mine. Said nothing. She didn't have to. Back at home the house was simpler. Fewer pictures. Fewer saved things. The letter. The one she threw away before reading. I opened it. Not to dwell. Just to see what I had once offered. The words were still mine. Still tender. Still full of a love that didn't regret itself. I folded it again. Tied it in new ribbon. Left it at the retreat, under a tree by the entry path. Let someone else find it one day. Let it bless someone who would receive it. She called again. Twice in October. Once in November. I didn't pick up. Didn't listen. There was nothing left to explain. She sent a Christmas card. Typed. Signed from all of us. No return address. I placed it in the fireplace. Watched the edges curl. Turned to white ash. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. On New Year's Eve, I poured a glass of cider. Sat in the quiet. No television. No countdown. Just the soft hum of a life that no longer needed to be filled by someone else's voice. I opened the drawer where the old will had once lived. Now it held seed packets, scraps of ribbon, and notes from the women at the retreat. I ran my fingers over each one. Folded. Creased. Cherished. I had given everything once. All of it, love, time, name, home. And they had tried to cut me out like a sentence that no longer fit. But I'd rewritten it. Without rage. Without apology. Without asking anyone's permission. Because peace does not wait to be approved. It simply arrives when you finally stop explaining why you deserve it. I made tea that night. Poured it into the mug she never used. Sat in the armchair she once curled in as a child. The room was quiet. But not hollow. Just full of something better. Full of me. I stood. Walked outside into the cold. Breathed in the sharp air. I held the spare house key in my hand. The one I almost left under her mat that day. The one I never gave. I walked to the river. Let it fall from my fingers. Watched it vanish into the current. The key I never gave. Became the one that freed me. I was never the echo. I was the voice they tried to silence. And I chose peace. Without permission.